I pulled out my topo for whatever reason. I wanted to see how far along that ridge I was. I said, geez, I'm not even halfway.
Yeah.
I heard something, and I look up in front of me, right there, 40 yards, that buck, trotting right at me. He tracked me. That's the story behind him. There was pretty significant snow at the time. If I remember right, it was about knee deep. It was actually, I had parked my truck not too far from camp here. And I was cutting up in, and I was struggling with this stupid pack I had. I have a short fuse when it comes to stuff like that. It's amazing I didn't just throw it in the woods and leave it there. But I had stopped, and I'm messing with the straps on this pack to try to snug it up on my shoulders. And I heard something. I distinctly remember leaves, but I'm like, what? Leaves? There's a foot of snow. And it was like a little outcropping of rock. And I looked down, and there was that buck, and he's trying to get his rack through the whips, beech whips, and the leaves, like 18 yards. He had no idea I was there. So I shoot him, drop him. Everything went to hell right here.
All right, this episode, I sit down with Chris Graves. He is a hunter from the Adirondacks. He is a part of the Adirondack Cowboys. Those boys like to get after it and hunt big deer, have a lot of fun. And Chris was a great guy. He's a truly accomplished hunter. He just purchased this camp in the Adirondack, so he invited me up there. And we start out the podcast sitting out in front of the campfire, and when it gets dark, we move it on inside. But I really enjoyed my time talking with Chris. There's a lot of great knowledge in here. And, I think you guys will enjoy this one. So here he is, Chris Graves. All right, welcome to another episode of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We're not in the suburbs today, are we?
We are not.
We're here at Chris Graves' new camp, huh?
Yep. Got it this winter.
Tell me a little bit about the camp and the history of it and what makes it so special for you.
Well, so ever since I was a little kid, I don't live that far from here, and always coming up through here, whether it was fishing or whatnot. And there's a green sign, you can see it from here.
Yep.
State Line Camp.
Yep.
Always remember that. And it was always a well kept. It's a very well built place. Never thought I'd ever own it. So again, fast forward to now, I get a call last deer season. I did know the people that owned it, and I had the opportunity to purchase it. I threw him an offer, and he took it. So here I am, Pat. Here I am, very fortunate to get it. It's there's a few camps in this area. I think back in the day they were all old hunting camps. Very few people hunt anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the vast majority are not hunting camps anymore, but I think that's what they were all built for back in the day.
No, why is it called the State Line Camp?
So the state line, you can see that sign right over there, the state sign?
Yeah.
The state line runs right here.
Meaning the state forest or
State
what?
forest. The
Okay.
Adirondack state line is right there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yep. And they named it the State Line Camp, and I'm definitely not going to change it. The history is made itself. I'm going to leave it.
Yeah.
I will make a nicer sign and stuff, but yeah, I'm keeping the name.
Yeah, and keep the old sign maybe hanging up in the camp.
For sure. The gentleman I did buy it from asked me that if I ever made a new sign and took that down, he asked if he could have it, and I told him I'd give it to him.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
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 Nice.
So that's how that all came into play.
Yep. And you've hunted around here, right? So you kind of know these woods anyway, right?
Yep. I didn't start hunting here. I'm going to take a stab and say like 20 years now. I've hunted this area. I cut my teeth in the Adirondacks in Big Moose, actually. My grandparents had a camp up there. That was the first place I ever even saw a rack off a buck. It was a huge 2-story camp.
Yep.
It had a big covered porch. And all across the porch, they had all these racks nailed to it. And it would have the guy's name that got it. and the weight, and that was it. That was all.
Mhm.
So it would say, Pat, 200 pounds. That was
Spike
all,
horn, 120 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it would say. So, but there was 30, 40 of them nailed up there.
Yeah.
And I always, remember a little kid, I was enamored by that. I remember when the first time I was able to go up there hunting with them. I bought a wool jacket. Got it was a red and black checkered one.
I was going to say red and black or
Yeah,
green and black.
It was red and black. I bought it in a little mom and pop store. They don't even have them anymore,
Mm-hmm.
But, and I went hunting. And that was my first time up there. And there's big bucks up there, but it's tough hunting. Witch hobble. About head high.
Everywhere.
Bad.
Yeah.
So once I figured things out, I'm like, man, there's got to be an easier way than crawling through that jungle. And my grandfather used to cat hunt back in the 50s and 60s up in these woods a lot. And I just started mousing around up here. And we put our first tent camp, I don't remember the year, buddy, but it was a long time ago. And we had it on one side of the lake. Met these guys on the other side of the lake, got in with them, and we started kind of hunting out of the same tent camp.
Yeah.
And I love these woods up here compared to what I was used to. For one, the witch hobble isn't head high every step. And
For two, you got rolling hills, right?
yeah. I mean, we got down like here where camp is, rolling hills, and then it goes up into the mountains. Nothing huge, not like the high peaks, just under 3,000 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up here. Coming from my grandparents' camp, just wanted a little better hunting.
Yep.
I don't think there's any more deer here than up there where I was, but I definitely like the woods a lot more here. And Hunter Bob was hunting up there long before I was. He would do, drag a tent 6 miles back in. I mean, that's Bob for you. He's hardcore. So he was up there before me and killing bucks. And he left. And then he used to bust chops. What are you guys doing up there? He goes, that's tough country. The mountains are. Well, guess where Bob's hunting now?
Yeah, down here.
He's back over here again. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you talking about the racks on the wall and who got it and the points and stuff. At my deer camp in Vermont, we were just talking where I cut my teeth hunting, was up there, and we just have a list on the wall of every deer that's ever been killed there since they started it in 1958.
Yep.
And it's so great to be able to flip those pages and go back.
Oh yeah.
And just see names on there, and ask. A lot of the guys I don't know from the 50s and 60s. I never met them, but then you hear stories about them, and
Yep.
all the deer you hear stories about. But yeah, it's just a name, how many points, the weight, and then there's a little note section that can fit like maybe 6 words. So they're really summed up, but it's cool to go back and look at that stuff.
I wish that's great they did that because later on in life, someone stole all the racks off my grandparents'
Oh
camp.
no!
All that history's gone, and they didn't keep a ledger or anything, so it's gone.
Yeah.
I was quite young at the time, and I remember some of the names up there, but it's gone.
Yeah. Well, we'll show you here, man. Maybe start a ledger here. It's a cool thing.
Yeah, I definitely will because we learned our lesson. You don't nail racks outside because someone's going to drive by and take them.
Yep.
That's the way it is now.
Well, that sucks.
Yep.
There's always people. There are a couple of the lines on those ledgers at our camp. There's some that'll say Flatlanders stole this buck. They'd steal them right off of the meat rack that we had
Really?
there. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes they'd go to sleep. They were drinking a lot more back then than hunted less, drank more, and they wake up and the deer would be gone.
Oh man.
And they would call it, Flatlanders stole it.
Yeah.
Just sucks.
So it's not just the Adirondacks. That was happening in Vermont too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got dirt bags everywhere.
Yeah, I guess unfortunately that's going to happen. It
Yep.
doesn't stop us from doing what we do.
Right.
Yep.
So for people who are watching who might not know Chris or the Adirondack Cowboys, your gang of hunters are out here. You guys track, and that's your main way of getting deer is tracking, right?
You know what? We're a pretty diverse group, to be honest with you. Hunter Bob, in my opinion, I'm not saying that because he's my friend, but he's probably one of the top shelf trackers in the Adirondacks. I would not want to be a buck with him behind me.
Yeah.
He just grinds and grinds and grinds. And, we will all track, for sure. But I like to kill my bucks on bare ground.
Still hunting?
I like to get in it. I like to know what bucks are in the area. I do a lot of camera work, a ton. I see what's around. And, of course, over time, I've learned that where their summer area isn't necessarily where I'm going to kill them.
Yep.
But it's close. So I have learned the areas to kind of branch out to after when season opens, and it's paid off for me several times. I mean, I've killed them tracking. Everybody loves to follow a buck track, but we don't always get that. It seems like more lately you get snow and it's crunchy, and it just everybody wants that perfect snow.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't seem to happen a lot.
Yep.
I don't know why, but it doesn't.
But
So I mean, I guess you could call us trackers, but we, Eric's self-employed, Bob is, I am. We take the entire season. We hunt every day.
Yep.
Rain, shine, snow, we're hunting.
There's one buck tag here, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Rifle, muzzleloader. You get your muzzleloader tag. I'm not picky with a muzzleloader. I'm really not. If it's got a rack, I don't care how big it is. I'm punching my tag and hanging it at tent camp and calling it a day, because for one, you get your meat in the freezer and you can be more selective after that, or try to. You don't always get that opportunity, I mean, so many people. I'll show you inside, Pat. I've shot bucks that when I got up to them, it wasn't what I thought.
Yeah.
I had like a half a second. So sometimes you take what you get.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way it is.
It's kind of a common misconception I hear all the time of people saying, "Why are you scouting in the summer? Those bucks aren't going to be there in the same summer area." But like you said, they are pretty close a lot of the time.
They're not far.
And down where I'm at in the suburbs, they really aren't far. The only times they might get out of there is if there's a really good acorn crop. If I'm finding them summering in CRP or some brushy where they got all this good forage and they got the berries to eat, that's where they are in the summer. And when I see them bounce out of there, it's only when there's a real big bumper crop of acorns. They'll go into the forest for a little while and eat those acorns, but they always do come back to that summer area, especially during the rut. The does go back in there, and they come back in there. So I think that's kind of a common misconception.
Yeah, I've never done that suburban hunting. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube about it because it's pretty exhilarating. There's some big bucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it's impressive.
It's interesting. I would have never thought that it would be as rewarding or anything as hunting in the the big woods like I grew up doing. But it is. It's a different kind of reward.
Well, it's the same reward, and you're earning it a different way.
Yeah.
That's all. And my hat's off to anybody that can do that. Really, I've tried the whole tree stand sitting thing around home, and I go nuts.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, I tell you what, when it turns to gun season, and if I still have tags in my pocket, I did last year for the first time in a couple of years since I started hunting the suburbs with a bow. When it turns to gun season, I have a tag in my pocket. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back just on the ground, hunting on the ground, tracking something down, still hunting. That's where I'll go from. When I say suburban hunting, a lot of people think you're just sitting in the backyard, because there's some people that do that.
Yeah.
And especially down south around Georgia and Tennessee and stuff. A lot of those guys on YouTube, they're hunting in backyards and they're getting permission from $1 million mansions and stuff. But My suburban hunting, I like to find a 400-acre patch of woods that
Nice.
might have neighborhoods around it on the edges and stuff, but it's still big enough that I can get into the timber.
That's the heart of the deer then, right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a whole new thing. Like you said, you got into the bow hunting. I've never bow hunted. My brother, he loves bow hunting. I just never got into it. I think mainly it's the busiest time for me. You're trying to wrap up projects.
Yeah.
Gun season's coming.
Yeah.
And we got to get in the mountains, and I need to be done work.
Yeah, and you took the whole gun season off,
you take
so
the whole
you got to
gun
work
season.
like hell to.
Yeah, and it just seems like that's when I'm super busy. But wow, is it a great time to hunt?
Yeah.
Because them bucks are moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of pictures at that time of year. So them bucks are on their feet then.
Yep. Yep.
And I feel like they're kind of predictable, aren't they?
I haven't found that they're predictable where I hunt. When you're in suburban places where it's almost like farm country in a little bit. I think farm country deer are more predictable, but when you're in a place where most patches of woods are 40 or 50 acres behind houses,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like that. It's a sea of that for miles and miles. They just bounce through all of that stuff. They're not just sitting in.
What do you think the range would be? Like, how far is a mature buck going in that area?
I mean, I've seen them still go 6-7 miles
Really?
down where I'm at.
Wow.
I've had cameras on 6 miles away that'll catch the same buck. They do. They just bounce from those little thickets behind houses, 50-acre patch to 50-acre patch to 80-acre patch, and then sometimes they'll be in the bigger ones, and it's interesting. But
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Who knows? Maybe someday. I would never say I'm never going to hunt like that, because who knows? I might fall into that situation where I have an opportunity to. And
well, yeah, like you said, if you end up selling your business or something, you end up getting more free time earlier on. You don't want to waste your buck tag because you want,
yeah, I could definitely
bounce
see it
over to
happening.
me. I'll take you in and
Yeah,
put you
I
into
could
some
definitely
spots.
see that happening.
Yep.
I would have to learn how to shoot a bow. That's for sure.
It's not that hard.
No.
No. So the Cowboys, how did that name come about?
You know, I guess I don't know exactly, but I'll bet it was Eric. And Eric's the funniest guy to be around always. He's always cracking jokes, and we have a group text, and we'll always pick on Bob, bust on Bob. That seems to be our thing. Let's pick on Bob and get him irritated. I'm betting Eric came up with it, and he probably saw Bob blowing through the freaking woods with his cowboy hat on, but I'd have to ask Eric to know the answer to that, but I'll bet he came up with it. His channel on YouTube used to be ADK Tracker. And I think just because of the similar name to with Joe and Steve, he switched it, and then just found a place. We do wear the cowboy hats in the snow and stuff. It serves a purpose. We're not cowboys, but it actually keeps the snow off your neck, so that's where it all stemmed from. And I've known Bob a long time, probably 30 plus years. I actually worked for him at one point. Me and his brother Tom, slave driver at that time. He was. I couldn't stay there long. Yeah, he's a tough nut to crack. Bob's a hard worker, and he expects a lot out of everyone.
Yeah.
So anyway, we all just started hunting that same area around close to the same time. And, Eric and Woody, got to know them. It's like, geez, we all have similar things. We're all self-employed. We all hunt every day, all season. And there's, no drama or nothing. It's a lot of ball busting. But we share a lot of intel. I think we've had different people say, we don't hunt like together. And I know it appears like that in a lot of videos. There's actually a buck in here, and we'll tell that story when we get inside because it's a good one. How we all came together, and we didn't even know we were in the same area or the same zip code. So we don't like go out and put drives or none of that. We just kind of hunt the similar area,
Help each other out if you
help
get
each
deer
other
down.
out, share some intel.
Yep.
You know, I'll get some buck pictures and like, hey, you know, ask Eric if Bob or you know, are you guys getting him 5 miles over that way? And you can kind of eliminate some things doing that, and we get along good. You know, we're all good friends, and I think that we're not really in it for nothing. We're just hunters.
Yeah.
Like we're nothing special. We just get along. There's no drama, and well, you've hung around with us. You know what we're about.
You guys are just a blast to be around.
Yeah, we can have some fun. We definitely can. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we take our hunting seriously, and you know, Eric. We all come from a very similar background of hunting. You know, Eric's dad, you know, big hunter, loves hunting, so we're all drawn to it. Bob, I don't know. I think it's in his DNA. I really do. He just has a knack about finding big bucks. I wish I knew how. I really do, but he works hard for him. He definitely does.
Yeah, when you got a sixth sense, you can't really teach sixth sense, you know. It's just
No.
so it's not like he could tell you exactly how.
Yeah.
It's just like no. Sometimes you're just drawn, and when you talk about you guys might be you end up in the same area. Whenever you get around a group of good hunters, it doesn't matter how big the patch is you guys are all hunting. It could be 30 square miles.
Yeah.
You're going to end up getting into and honing in on those same places if you're a good hunter.
Yeah.
You're just going to get there together.
Yeah. You end up. It just seems to roll that way. Every time I talk about something, all these stories pop in my head, and I got to tell you a quick one.
Yeah, please.
A couple of years ago, again, I didn't know anyone was up where I was hunting. I was a couple miles from tent camp, and all of a sudden we carry these little radios, and I heard something on the radio, so I pulled it out, and it was Bob. So I'm kind of talking with him quick, figure out where he is. He told me where he was, and I wasn't terrible far from him, maybe a mile. And all at once, way off, I hear, and I said to Bob, I go, "Did you hear that?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Did you hear where it was?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Not good, huh?" He goes, "No." And right about that time, you hear this little squelch on the radio. So I turned my volume up, and it was Eric. And I go, "Is that you?" He goes, "Roger that." Big buck down.
Yeah.
I said, "I heard where you were," so I knew where he was. I said, we got our game plan together. I ended up going back to tent camp, getting a deer cart. Bob hoofed it up in, grabbed it with Eric, got it down to where they met me with the cart. But again, that's where I was going with the story was, we didn't plan that. We just all kind of ended up in the same area.
Was that when there was snow on the ground?
There was snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric had followed this buck track. It was old, real old. And he was just kind of taking it up through the mountain. And luck had its way right there. The buck stood up. And he shot it right there. It was that buck there, I think, was a 9-point, if I remember right. It was a beautiful buck.
Yeah, that's another thing that will concentrate the good hunter, especially the trackers, is if there's snow in one spot, you know.
Yeah.
If it's up high and you guys are all looking for snow, you know, that makes the woods a lot smaller if that happens.
It seems like it gets small quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. My oldest son, Nate, started hunting out of tent camp, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. And I told him then, because to him he thought, wow, I'll never learn these woods.
Yeah.
And I said, it gets small quick.
Yeah.
And he's a good woodsman, never worried about him. And he knows them woods as well as I do now.
Yep.
He learned them that quick. And we're hunting a big area. It's, right at tent camp. I mean, I think it's 20-some thousand acres of easement, then all state after that. So there's a lot of ground.
Room to roam.
There's a lot of room. I mean, there's nothing all the way up to the Moose River Plains. There's nothing there.
Yep.
Just woods.
What do you do when, because you said you like to hunt on bare ground.
Yeah.
What's your starting point when you're going into a bare ground spot? Is it the cumulative knowledge over the years and you just go back to the places you know?
In a sense, yes. Big bucks will travel where bucks travel, and it's not necessarily the hottest game trail, or you got to figure them spots out. And obviously, I've learned them over the years, and I know where them bucks travel up there. So I start there, get some cameras out, and when I say get some cameras out, between me and Nathan, over 20 all the time, and sometimes more.
Yeah.
But there's usually at least 20 out, and over a 6, 7, 8 mile area.
Yep.
And I'll get a handful of bucks that I would be glad to shoot. So then I'll start, okay, now I'll zone in on them with some more cameras, and once I get an area that I think, I'm getting enough pictures, I think I have a chance, by then they're starting to scrape, and that they're giving up their spots then.
Are you using cell cameras or are you going in and pulling cards?
No cell service.
Yeah, so pulling cards?
Yep, pulling cards.
Yep.
And most of the time, and I can look back and say this pretty much for certain now, most of the time it's an area that I hunted years past.
Yeah.
And, a great big buck was using that same area the same way. So it's really nothing new. It's usually never right in the heart of the doe groups, the little pockets where there's 4 or 5 doe.
Yeah, on the edges of it though,
They're
right?
around it.
Yeah.
Or close to, and they're zinging through them areas. And I was talking with Joe Donito one time about, this was a long time, our daughters played soccer, and we're at a game, we're talking. And Joe, everybody goes to his seminars. He likes to go high and just run them mountains and try to cut a track. That's what he's about. I personally like that low ground. I really do.
You don't mind the water?
I don't mind the water, and I really like the lower ground. I'm not saying I don't go on the mountains. Naturally I do, but I've done real well down in the green. Very, very well.
So are you finding that some of those bucks are staying in a relatively close area sometimes? Like when you say, all right, I'm getting him on here quite a bit, now I can try to hone in on him.
It's funny you say that. You would think that. I could pick out, 4 or 5 bucks over the last few years that I would get consistent pictures of. Now, I'm not saying every day.
No.
But, twice a week.
Yep.
Same buck.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, this is doable.
Because you hear Hal all the time saying all the cameras are worthless up in northern Maine, and I'm just wondering if it's different up there than down here in the
it's definitely different
Adirondacks.
up there. I don't think.
They must still be looping back through quite a bit.
Yeah. When I say consistent enough, if I'm getting a couple pics of a good buck in a week,
Yeah.
that's close enough for me to be in that area.
Yep.
Very seldom do you kill them bucks, it doesn't always happen. Vast majority of the bucks that I've shot didn't have on camera. But the cameras is a mental thing for me. Half the time you wouldn't even think there was a deer in those woods.
Oh yeah, they don't lay a lot of sign, do they?
Boy, if you just had it struck off into them woods and had zero intel. I've seen a lot of people come up in there and hunt, a week or more, and come out and just say, hey, they're never coming back.
I'm never going back to that spot.
They didn't even see a deer, not a tail or nothing, and I always tell them that's not uncommon. I've gone a week without seeing a deer too. Happens a lot, and that's hunting every day.
Yeah.
But I always try to be in those areas where I have history, at least get some current pics, and then try to zone in from there. I'll flood an area with a bunch of cameras if I have to. If I feel like he's crossing 100 yards over there on that beaver dam and he's not coming down his scrape line, or I'll just do what I got to do to try to find what he's up to.
Yeah.
And it's a game, and I usually lose. They win. let's face it. I mean, they win 99% of the time.
Yeah. Well, and it's another cool kind of similarity to even the suburban hunting that I do is where if I'm going to scout a new spot, I'll put 3 cameras in like a 40, 50 acre area. And then I'll go check those cameras 2 or 3 weeks later, see if anything's going on there.
Yep.
If there's not much on it, I'll take all 3 of those cameras out of there, go to another patch, put them in there. But if there's some activity on it, I'll load up, put 2 more or 3 more cameras in there. Now I got 6 in that area.
Yep.
And it's the same kind of thing, but on a smaller.
Yeah, it's very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said you had bucks that would go 6, 7 miles. I mean, naturally, they do that up here a lot farther. There was a buck. My son had him last year all summer long. Watched him grow. Like this, for the Adirondacks, I've never seen a buck as consistent as this buck was. And I thought for sure my son was going to kill this buck. So hunting season comes. And just like you hit a switch, sporadic at best. Once in a blue moon, we'd get him on this a community scrape. He'd blow in there and clean the scrape, hit the lick and branch, and go. But then you wouldn't see him for weeks.
Yeah. Well, that's because the does are coming into heat and they just going following the does.
I went to a Christmas party at a taxidermist shop, and I talked to a friend of ours, and he had heard about that buck. And he says, show me a picture of that. And I showed him a picture, and he said, that's the buck. I go, what do you mean that's the buck? He goes, that buck was coming all the way down by our camp. I go, no way.
How far?
A long ways. So I told my son, I said, that's why he was disappearing. He was following this drainage. It was a long ways.
Yeah.
Like, straight line on a topo map, I bet it was 8 miles, 9 miles. That's straight line. And that buck would just peel out, go down there. He'd be on their camera for a couple days. And then, boom, a week or so later, he'd be back up our way, and we'd get him on those cams. Again, I'm going to say it again. The cameras for me is a mental thing. It keeps me in the woods.
They're fun.
They're fun.
It's a fun thing to go check
I love
those.
that bare ground hunting. I enjoy it. I mean, we've had some real warm weather, it seems like the past few years. 60 degrees isn't uncommon early season.
Yep.
And they're still moving.
I really love it too. And if there's a rain, do you hunt in the rain?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I love the rain. I mean, if it's raining, like that's almost my favorite day to go out with a gun is when it's raining, because I don't get snow there hardly ever. If it's raining, I'm like, this is a must. I must get out there.
And what do you find? The deer are moving.
Oh, yeah. And it's just, man, it's so quiet. You feel like a ninja out there when it's raining. And
yeah, you definitely do feel good.
Especially with some wind.
Yeah, yeah. Eric has tracked a few bucks on wet leaves.
Yep.
And killed them like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be done.
Yep.
I've never done it.
Yeah, wet leaves, it's easy to, for somebody just getting into hunting, it wouldn't be easy to find it. But if you're a good woodsman, wet leaves, you can see the tracks going right down,
absolutely.
just
You
like
definitely
it's snow.
can. Yep.
Yep.
It's getting dark.
Yeah, why don't we, I'm afraid that camera will lose battery too, so let's move on inside for
Sounds good.
the rest of the pod.
All right, guys, Hunstock, New York is right around the corner, July 19th through the 21st at Vernon National Shooting Preserve in Vernon Center. It's the first time we brought the show to New York, so I'd love all you Adirondack trackers to come on down to the show, and anybody who hunts down in the southern zones and enjoys hunting with a bow, and whether it's in the woods or farm country, we've got a little bit of everything for everybody down there. But on the tracking side, we're going to have seminars from Joe Donito and Jim Massett, the local guys there who made a good name for themselves, incredible trackers. Lanny Benoit coming down from Vermont to do seminars, and Hal Blood coming over from Maine to do seminars. We also have guys like Bo Martonic coming up from Pennsylvania in the East Meets West podcast. He's got a ton of knowledge, and he's quite the hunting celebrity these days, as well as Josh Ilderton coming up from West Virginia. His page, The Untamed, does some really incredible stuff. They do spot and stock bow hunting in West Virginia, so it's cool. You get to spot and stock like you would out west, but doing it on the east. He's a great guy too. So in terms of seminars, speakers, content creators, we've got a great lineup there. And for sponsors, we've got an awesome lineup too. Bushnell's coming up and displaying all their different types of optics that are good for tracking. They've got, low power scopes and red dots and things like that, plus binoculars and rangefinders. We've got Moultrie Mobile coming, displaying their cell cams and talking about all the new features they've got going on. Plus Tacticam will be there as well. On the bow side, we've got Prime Archery and Bowtech coming up and displaying their latest bows. On the gun side, Woodman Arms will be down there, and if you've always wanted to shoot a Woodman Arms muzzleloader, this is a great chance because they're going to be set up at the Bushnell Optics rifle range, and you can go up there and shoot 3 different types of Woodman Arms with different types of Bushnell optics for free. Just you take a golf cart up, it's a little drive up the farm road there to the rifle range, and have a great experience getting to test out a Woodman Arms with Bushnell optics. And again, that's free, and you'll get an extra door prize ticket for that. We're giving away about $25,000, probably be more by the time the show rolls around, and door prizes from bows, Woodman Arms, muzzleloaders, tons of optics, over 30 cell cameras, a bunch of different saddle brands. We've got a bunch of saddle companies coming, from Trophy Line to Hunt Arsenal, Buzzard Roost, New York Saddle Hunters, Timber Ninja. Tethered is giving some stuff away. So if you've always wanted to figure out and try to get yourself into a saddle, see what that's all about, you'll be able to test that out there from a bunch of different brands, learn different climbing methods. And we've got a 3D archery course, of course, 20 targets that'll get you out there prepared for the bow season if you're a bow hunter. And just lots of cool activities, great stuff for kids. We've got a fishing pond. Bring your kids. All kids under 12 are free. And, bring your kids, bring their poles, some bait, and they can fish in the pond. Plus, we'll have a bouncy house and an inflatable archery course for them. And beyond that, we're just going to have a great time. So go to www.huntstockevents.com to get your tickets. And you can get tickets at the door as well. Again, it's July 19th through the 21st at Vernon National Shooting Preserve in Vernon Center. We look forward to seeing you guys there.
All right. So you were just showing me a picture of your son. There's a great story behind that hunt.
Yeah, my son Nate, 2 years, I guess it was 2 years ago, this hunt, we were getting this really big buck crossing on this beaver dam. Not consistent, but enough to get us down in there. And we were mousing around in there. We were going to sit for a couple hours that morning, or that was the idea. Well, I don't even think I sat down. There was like this stump where I could see the fly, and my son hollers to me on the radio, and he goes, "Dad," he goes, "that buck crossed down on the other end of the fly. I got him on this camera." I go, "Which way is he going?" He goes, "Across, up the mountain." I said, "Okay. What time?" He said, 4 hours ago. I said, "All right." I said, "Well, let's hang out for a while." And about 10 minutes goes by. "Dad, let's go over there." I said, "All right, let's, I don't like sitting either." So we went across this big fly. It's big. And we use this Topo app on our phone. It's Topo USA. It's basically a USGS Topo map on your phone.
I use that too.
So I had radioed to him, and I said, I picked spots on the map. I said, "Meet me there, 11 o'clock, we'll have lunch." Told him about where he should be hunting up through, and told him where I would be. So we hunted up through there. I never saw a deer. Saw a lot of deer sign. We met at lunchtime. Now, at that point, my son was above me, hunted, and I was down low. We ate our lunch, and this is where just fate comes into play. I don't know why I said this, but I said, "Nate, why don't I go high and you go low now, and we'll just keep going north?" All right. So we're hunting along.
Hunting along kind of the same ridge?
It's a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like 16 to 1,800 feet, and
Yep.
he was right down in the bottom. And we're hunting along, and I saw 2 doe. And they were heading up the mountain. They didn't look spooked to me. I don't think... They could have winded him and were just getting out of Dodge, but they weren't really running. But I thought, well, I finally saw some deer. I took one step here. Boom! And it was far enough away, Pat, that I wasn't totally sure that it... I thought my son should have been a little closer, but you know how that goes. It's in the woods, and he comes on the radio. He goes, "Big buck down." I go, "No kidding. Good job." I said, "Nice buck." He goes, "Oh, yeah." Now, again, bare ground. I said, "Is it the one in the picture?" Because that one was a tank. He goes, "No, it's not that one." So I booked down the mountain. I said, "Give me some time. It's going to take me a while to get over to you." I booked down the mountain. There was this... I've never seen a little ridge like this anywhere ever than right there. It's like a ridge that comes up, Pat, and it's just wide enough to walk on, and then it drops right straight off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literally a foot wide.
Game trail right on the top of it, huh?
On
Probably.
the base.
Oh, on the base.
It was on the base on the other, and my son he saw that ridge, and he just got on it and was walking that peak of it, and that buck was coming down on the base, and he shot right down and shot it.
Yeah.
But again, fate, like what made me switch? Why didn't I just say, all right, you continue on and I'll continue on? But we switched.
Your son was meant to kill that one.
He was definitely meant to kill that and made a great shot. It was a beautiful buck. Yeah, that was the picture we were just looking at over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, fate plays, I bet you fate plays a role in everybody's hunt from time to
Absolutely.
time. There's, I could go on and on with stories. That buck right there,
Which one?
the 196 pounder on the left.
Yep.
It was bare ground, and I was hunting.
That's a big buck for up here.
That's a really big buck for
196.
up. I've never come close to that. Eric's killed a couple, over 2, early though, real early, muzzleloader type stuff. Yeah, most of our bucks are 160, 170.
Yep.
That's average. So yeah, that's a really big buck. Well, that morning we were going to go up, hunt what we call the old tent camp area, and it was a place where hunters had this old tent camp. And so me and my buddy Rick, we had split up when we got there, and he was going to... It's not really a mountain. It's a pretty good ridge. He was going to go around the other side. I was going to stay on the east side. We were going to hunt north and then scoot up the top. Midday is what we figured about timing, and have lunch. I was going along, and I pulled out my topo for whatever reason. I wanted to see how far along that ridge I was. I said, geez, I'm not even halfway.
Yeah.
I heard something, and I look up in front of me, right there, 40 yards, that buck trotting right at me. You see his rack. That stuck out. I go, holy cow.
Was it crunchy?
No.
You think he heard you and thought maybe you were...
No, he had no idea I was there. There was, as luck would have it, again, here's fate, where I had stopped, it was an old skid road. There was a big boulder there that was kind of not really blocking me, but from like the way he was coming, it kind of sort of broke me up. I was able to get my gun up, and now he's at 30 yards, and I shoot, and he stops, and he raises his head. I never touched him. I had a bolt action, too. So now he's at 30 yards.
Yeah.
Now he knows something. He's looking around. He's full alert. I can't believe he didn't run. I got another bullet in there, got it up. He was behind this big birch tree. I saw his neck, shot him in the neck, dropped him. This is where it gets really crazy. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the only ones in the woods were me and Rick, right? There was nobody else up there. So I hollered on the radio to Rick. He's like, I heard the shot. He goes, it's going to take me an hour or so to get to you. I'd set my gun over wherever next to a tree. I'm taking some pictures of this buck and, loving it. All of a sudden, I hear something coming out of the bottom. Like, what the heck? And I look over at my gun, and I'm like, what do I do? Whatever's coming's close. It's coming right out of the spruce. And so I'm like trying to get over by my gun, but I'm watching where I'm hearing this. I see an orange hat. I go, no way. This is the Adirondack.
You just don't see, yeah.
I'm not nowhere's near a road. Up pops, gets closer, and I see this kid, young kid, and it was Sean Widrick. It was the first time I'd met Sean. And he says, did you get him? I said, yeah, I got him. I said, where did you come from? How did you even get up in here? He says, I went over this other mountain, and I ended up on this mountain. He goes, I think I jumped that deer off to you. I said, well, you may have. He didn't look spooked coming at me, but who knows,
Yeah, he was trotting.
By then, Rick had gotten to us. Long story short, Sean says, do you want help getting this buck out? Well, he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't want to ruin your hunt, but if you don't want to help, yeah. He goes, yeah. He goes, I got a buddy. Let me call him on the radio. So another 20-year-old kid, and they helped us drag that buck. When we got him back to tent camp, a lot of the hair was off his hind quarter. It was a long drag.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool. It was the first time I had met them. We've become great friends. He stopped at tent camp. I can't tell you how many times. Being in the same trade as I am, I see him at different functions, barbecues and stuff. And we've become good friends. His dad's great.
Well, he must have ranged quite a bit to get over to you guys on that day. He put on some miles.
Now that again, fast forward to now that I know him, know what he's about, he's all over the place. Like, anybody listening to this podcast that hunts the Adirondacks could literally run into Sean.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
He could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And he puts on, he's young. He's young.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about any of these other bucks on the wall there? Them stories.
Oh, geez. That one there, I kind of briefly told you.
Your first.
It was technically my second Adirondack buck, but I mounted it, so. He tracked me. That's the story behind him. There was pretty significant snow at the time. If I remember right, it was about knee deep. It was actually, I had parked my truck not too far from camp here. And I was cutting up in, and I was struggling with this stupid pack I had. I have a short fuse when it comes to stuff like that. It's amazing I didn't just throw it in the woods and leave it there. But I had stopped, and I'm messing with the straps on this pack to try to snug it up on my shoulders. And I heard something. I distinctly remember leaves, but I'm like, what? Leaves? There's a foot of snow. And it was like a little outcropping of rock. And I looked down, and there was that buck, and he's trying to get his rack through the whips, beech whips, and the leaves. Like 18 yards. He had no idea I was there. So I shoot him, drop him. Everything went to hell right here. I go up to him, grab him, his horn falls off.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, the one side shut off.
Was it in December?
It was the second to the last day of season. So I get out my phone. That was a long time ago. And I texted Hunter Bob. And I said, 10 point. I just killed a nice 10 point. I said, where are you at? And he answered, which then I knew he wasn't farther north because there's no service up there. And if I remember right, he was like, we're hunting the county land or something. He goes, my brother's with me. He goes, I think I heard you shoot. I go, heard me shoot? You're like 6 miles from me. I don't think you heard. Oh, he heard a shot in their direction. I said, well, I'll get this buck out. I'll bring it down and show you. That's when I found out that buck, he had actually crossed the road that I parked on and took my boot tracks.
Yeah.
Now think of the scent coming up. I had just walked through there. Minutes. That buck step for step in my boot tracks.
Well, you made a trail for him, man.
Yeah,
maybe
and it was just easy
that.
going. He didn't care that my scent was blowing out of them track. Didn't bother him in the least. And he was, looking for another doe probably for whatever he was doing. But yeah, that's what I say. He tracked me.
Yeah.
Now, and take him how you can get him, right?
Now, one thing you brought up that's kind of interesting, and I found it in my hunting too. Of course, I pull out my phone a lot. I use OnX. I'm looking at maps all the time and figuring out where I'm at and looking at waypoints and stuff. And I find a lot of times when I just take that, maybe it's 3 or 4 minutes that I'm stopped looking at my phone.
Yeah.
Just taking a break. A lot of people will say, stop looking at your phone, go hunting. But I found that a lot of times when I stop, I'll start hearing a crunch, and you get some opportunities when you just stop every once in a while.
Fate. I'll say it again. Fate. I mean, things are meant to be how they're meant to be. Whether it's looking at your phone,
and it slows you down sometimes. Sometimes you can be going too fast, and when
the biggest mistake that I've always made for a long time is going too fast in the woods. Way too fast. Got an ant on you. Yeah, I've definitely slowed down a lot now, for sure. And I see more deer now.
Yeah.
But I think that's everyone. Don't you think? I mean, I think anyone in their 20s and 30s, they're
just going.
You're fit. You're just trucking along. And I think most people either miss deer, spook them, don't even see them. The deer don't jump up. They just lay low and let you go by at 80 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Slowing down in the woods, that's a hard thing to do. You need to do it. And then you can fast forward into some snow. Actually, that buck over there, that big tall rack one, he was on snow. And wasn't enough snow to really track how you like. You really had to concentrate looking at the ground more than you should. But again, fate came into play for him. Yeah, I was kind of poking along on his track, but I couldn't see it a lot of times. A lot of places it was green, and then you'd pick it up again. So I know you mentioned earlier about, tracking, and I don't call myself a tracker. I just don't. I just call myself a hunter. Mm-hmm. I've killed way more bucks on bare ground than I have snow. Just luck, luck of the draw. Right here.
That's a beauty right
there. Yeah, that's the one I got this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool rack, man. He's tight and he's thick.
There was good snow that day. And here's a case. I don't care who you are, you weren't going to figure his track out.
Why is that?
He was all over the place. You couldn't do nothing with him. He had crossed the road 3 or 4 different times. I was heading up into our tent camp, and I'd seen the track cross the road, and I'd seen a boot track check it from a pickup truck. But they didn't take it, and I didn't stop there. Then I seen it again. Then I seen it again. And I stopped the 3rd time and looked at it, and I said, whoever's looking at this track, it's a big buck track.
Yeah.
But I said, I pulled over. At that point, I knew he'd been back and forth across the road. I didn't really know which way he went last.
Yeah.
I took a gamble. I went east. There was a river down there, which was part of the reason I went that way. I said, well, if I can catch him in here, I said, I'll go in here and see if I can figure his track out. He was all over in there that night. Up, down, left, right, crossing the river, coming back across. There must have been a hot doe around there somewhere.
Yeah, he was just trying to
find
find her.
He couldn't find her, and he spent all night running around in there. It took me about 30 minutes, and I realized there was no making a circle and figuring this out. He was all over the place. I sat there, and again, here's fate for you. My first instinct was, Chris, get back in your truck. get up to camp, you know? But I didn't. Went upon this little knob, state land, mind you, in the Adirondacks, and there was an old tree stand there. Now, I don't know about you, but when you see old tree stands, don't you look around and say, boy, it's probably a good spot.
Yeah, because those old ones
Yeah.
took a lot of
It
effort
meant
to get the woods
something.
up. You get the wood up there to build it. It took a lot of effort
Yeah.
to do that. They weren't just not
No.
like now where you can move it. You know,
It's
you got to
it
do your
means
scouting.
something.
Yeah,
So I go over to that thing. I wasn't there a minute. I'm like assessing the whole area and trying to really decide, should I just get up to tent camp and hunt where I should be? I shouldn't even be down here, I'm thinking. And I heard something. I looked to my right, and all I saw was that rack right there coming right at me.
you're just standing there.
And I said, now I'm right-handed. I'm facing, this way. This deer's coming over my right shoulder.
Yeah.
So
yeah, weak side.
So I started getting, he's close. 35 yards. I was able to get spun around, almost got my gun up where it should be, and he stops and wheels his head right up, ears out. I said, oh, no. I'm watching him, and all at once I see his ear go down. I said, no way, he's gonna take another step.
Yeah.
And as soon as his ear went down, he took that one stride. I use a Trigicon on my Remington, and I got that dot on him, plowed him right there. So I was able to, I knew he was a 10-point, or I thought.
He's
I could
11.
tell. And it ended up being 11. But yeah, that was, again, that's fate. I made a decision right there to just,
Yeah.
there was a lot of luck that went into that. I mean, but I also made the right call. Go over in there, mouse around, see what you can do.
Yeah.
Saw that old stupid tree stand. All these little things come into play, and you think back on it. And again, I'll say it again. I think it's just fate. It was meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my best bucks out of my Vermont camp, I had a plan to go up this old 2-track road. There's a gate at the bottom of it, but I know the gate's open during deer season, and it's one of my favorite places to go. And I was already opening day. I'm going back there. It's a long drive, and then when the gates open, it's it gets you up into the middle of the woods, and not huge woods where my deer camp is. It's 4,000 acre patches pretty much, and just getting up in there, it's a nice starting point to be out in the middle of nowhere. And that was my plan. And I got there, and the gate was closed. I was like, son of a bitch, it's opening morning and the gate was closed. I'm like, now I need a, I like being in the woods when the sun's coming up and sitting 30 minutes before that. And
Yeah.
I was kind of pissed, because it's opening day. I wanted to be sitting there when.
You already feel like you're behind.
Yeah. And I, just shot it to a random spot that I'd never been to before. Drove back to camp about 45 minutes, down closer to camp, went into a new spot and shot my best buck at, an hour after I got in there and sat down. If the gate was open, I wouldn't have shot that buck.
It's funny when you think back after the hunt, and you think back on all the little things that came into play to make that happen. It's not always your skill.
No.
I actually think a lot of times it's just the way things rolled out. Mm-hmm. My buddy Rick and I always said, you're a little pinprick in the Adirondacks. One little pinprick.
Yeah.
And these bucks are one little pinprick, and somehow you two got a touch.
Yep.
And you can take all the skill in the world. You need a little luck. You really do. I don't even tracking them. You need a little luck. When you get to that last little bit.
Yeah.
When he's close.
Yeah.
You think he's close.
Yeah.
Of course, that's another thing that's always in the back of your head. You think he's close. Am I wasting time? What am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you feel that wind on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. Sure enough, you go up 80, 100 yards or whatever, and there's running track
coming out of his bed. Yeah.
And the luck wasn't on your side. That wind just twisted a little bit and blew your scent up there, and it's game over then. So we all I don't care who you are, you need luck.
Yeah.
You really do.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. You got to be good enough to get into the position, where then you need the last, that, like you said, that last 100 yards or something. You got to have some luck.
Absolutely. There was that buck that I told John that I called Admiral. I had a lot of history with him. Huge buck, huge. Picked up his track one morning. It was good snow too. It was one of them days that, like, today's the day, and I was pretty confident the track was his. I knew what it looked like, and I started on it. I didn't go quarter mile. Boot track. Now, this never happened. This is Adirondacks. Like, here's this boot track. So I'm looking at it. I recognized the boot track instantly. I knew who it was.
Yeah.
So I pull out my radio. My son was up the mountain from me at that point, and I called him, and I was ranting. It's 8 in the morning. I have what I think is the Admiral's track, going the right way. Everything's going to be. I'm going to have a great day on this buck. And there's this boot track heading up the mountain on it. So my son says, "Dad, just calm down.
Yeah.
Just go somewhere else. Go." So I said, "You know what? You're right. Here's my son giving me advice."
Yeah.
I was pretty hot because I really wanted to kill that buck. I dropped down in. Yeah, he went up the mountain with the buck. My son was on the other end up the mountain. So I said, "You know what? It's pointless to go up there. I'm going to drop down in the green." So I dropped down in there, picked up a buck track in there. I don't think I went maybe a mile, not even. It's one of them up there.
Yeah.
And shot that buck track.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Admiral, but I mean, hey, beautiful buck. Mission accomplished.
Yep. And you don't know what happened to that buck, huh? The Admiral?
No, I don't. I had so many. This was a buck that I swear to God came looking for my cameras. He would literally be on every camera at one point or another. 2 mountains apart, whatever. He just didn't. He wasn't camera shy at all.
Yeah.
You could put it on a stick in the middle of a trail and you would get his picture.
Yeah.
There were several very close calls. One in particular, I think it was 4 minutes. I got to the camera. I saw a doe track and a great big buck track. Mm-hmm. And I pulled the card, and it's Admiral. Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. I'm assuming old age.
Yeah, died of old age.
And he was going downhill. The last year I had him, he was at least 9. And he was going downhill.
Yeah.
He had a lot of stickers and stuff still, but he had lost
mass.
He wasn't nothing like he was. He was still a beautiful buck, but he wasn't nothing like he was when he was 7, for sure.
What do you find here is like, because out west, the studies and the Boone and Crockett books and all of that stuff says, 5.5 is the peak for antler growth. It just seems to be 5.5 is the biggest, but I don't think that's the case in the Northeast.
From what I can tell you this, back in the 80s, when you could feed deer in the winter, there was a family that fed the deer in the winter yard not far from here. Everybody around would go there, and it was nothing. You see hundreds of deer, great big bucks.
Yeah, go shed hunting.
They knew, and the people that fed them all winter long, they were good about it. They didn't just feed a little bit. They kept these deer fed in the winter.
Yep.
They weren't hunters, so they would get all the sheds off these deer that they knew year after year after year.
Yep.
They have sheds from the same buck for 11 years.
That's cool.
And based on that, 7 years old.
Yep.
Was his peak.
Yeah.
But I guess I would only have an opinion on it. And
yeah.
Normally I would have said 5.5, 6, but based on that, 7 was that buck's
That
peak.
seems like what I'm seeing around Massachusetts stuff and
Is
New
it
Hampshire
7?
too. Yeah, 7.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that.
And some of them are like 9. 9 is their best one.
Yeah. Yeah.
My buddy Pat, who's my partner at Hunstock there, he shot an 11-and-a-half-year-old buck that he was after for 6 years. He had most of his sheds. And it was a big woods buck from Massachusetts in a 10,000 acre patch of woods or something. He lived in Mountain Laurel. He's just this sea of Mountain Laurel you can't get through. So
I've never hunted in that, Pat, but I hear horror stories about it.
yeah, but I mean, it's amazing for growing bucks and
Is
letting
it?
them get old. They hide in there. And he had sheds from that buck when it was 7 and 8 and 9. And his biggest year was 9. He was like 198 inches when he was 9 years old. And he ended up shooting him at 11 and a half years old. He was 174 inches still at 11 years old.
That's unbelievable. Isn't
Unbelievable deer.
it? Yeah. That's Fitz got a buck. I think it was last year, and he had it aged. Sent it out. I think it was a tooth or something, and I'm pretty sure it was 8 or 9 years old. Now, where else are you going to hunt and kill 8, 9-year-old bucks?
No, doesn't happen.
Doesn't, does it?
No.
Needs
to be north. Anywhere in the north.
In the Northeast. I would bet, like, I've never hunted Michigan and Wisconsin. I know there's some pretty big woods up there.
Yeah.
I would bet they have the same thing there.
Yep, and anywhere north.
Yep, for sure.
I don't think you're getting 9-year-old bucks in Kansas and Iowa and those places that are heavy bow hunted,
Probably not. I wouldn't think so. Not many. Probably not as many as there are, like, in the Adirondacks. I'm going to use that because that's where I hunt. I mean, I do a lot of cameras, and there's a lot of old bucks up there that you never see.
Yeah.
You just don't see them. They're like a freaking ghost. I put out a camera. This was years ago. Hunter Bob brings this one up a lot because it was a huge buck. My daughter was with me, Megan, and it was like mid-August. So the bucks had their racks. They were in velvet and everything, but you could tell a big buck then. I was getting some cameras out, and I used to have, Megan would always go with me a lot back then. And I would have her, I'd say, okay, go over there and walk by here, and I'd watch the little trigger and make sure it tripped.
Yeah.
And it tripped on this one particular camera. So away we went. Now fast forward to mid-October when I go back to it. The very next picture, there was a picture of Megan. The very next picture was that night, literally like 5 hours later, of a huge buck. Yeah. Huge buck. And I wish I had it with me. You could see the fear in this buck's eyes. He smelled my daughter.
Yeah.
And he was bugging out. You could just tell. Never got another picture of him there.
Yeah.
Never got another picture of him anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, that tells me that each buck's an individual. Mm-hmm. He bugged out bad from that. He didn't like the smell of her. And I never got his picture anywhere ever again. But then the Admiral, I could get him 30 times a season on cameras.
Oh, yeah.
So I think bucks are like people in a sense that they're individuals. Some of them may let a little more scent go than this buck. He may get just a trace of it and bug right out.
Yep.
So luckily they're not all super hockey, or I think we'd never get them.
Well, it's like the one you were talking about earlier that went 9 miles as the crow flies down that draw.
Yeah, that was a crazy. I really thought Nathan would get that buck, and again, after season, you're at a Christmas party at your taxidermist shop, and you find out that buck was 9 miles away during hunting season. The same. We knew he was disappearing. I didn't know where he was going. I never thought he would have been going where he was. I would have bet everything against that, but he was.
Yeah, well, you got bucks at a range like that, and then you'll have a buck that probably sticks to one ridge, or one mountain, and he's a homebody.
Yeah,
and they're all different. And that buck that my partner killed that was 11 and a half years old, he learned a lot about that deer because he was on it for 6 years. He had 100 cameras at one point, trying to figure out where exactly. And every year he learned. All right, you tighten it up, a circle, tighten it up. And then he got to the point where he knew this is his this is his home range in the middle of that sea of laurel. He had him pinned down to 400 yards where he spent most of his 400 yard square
That's
place
amazing.
where he spent most of his time, and that's how he got to be 11 years old. I mean, it's a heavily hunted area, and that buck in the summertime would be 3 or 4 miles away, and he'd be down there even at night. He'd go down in there. This place he had cameras 4 miles away. He'd be down in there feeding, but daylight he was always up to where he figured out this little postage stamp where that buck lived, and he didn't move. He moved within that 400 yards. He moved in there a lot. There were a couple scrapes that he would hit all the time, but that was where he was safe in the day, and he didn't leave it during the daytime.
Yeah. I always wonder, and I think this is the case with some older bucks. Not all, because they're individuals. They're all different, but I truly think that when some of these bucks get up in age, they shrink their core area.
Oh yeah,
right down.
They have less of a drive to go breeding and stuff, and
the buck, maple buck that Hunter Bob got. I really think that buck did that because they were hot on after him for a couple years, and then all of a sudden one day he comes out of the swamp with a doe. I mean, how did they never cut his track? I think that buck was just shrunk into that swamp in his little core area. And
think about it from your point of view. If you're going into a new area you never hunted, and you're going to start hunting it a lot, and let's say it's 20,000 acres, and you're like, oh, I'm going to learn this thing. Well, the first couple of years, you're all over that 20,000 acres, aren't you?
Yep.
And then as you get older and you learn that spot more, you realize, well, this is kind of the best 1,000 acres in that piece, so you're going to spend a lot more time there.
Yeah.
I think they're doing the same thing, just reverse of that. They've lived 9 years. They know, well, this is where there's the least amount of traffic. I've got my food. I've got safe bedding here. They're doing the same thing. They're probably ranging a lot when they're younger, and then they get 9 years old, and they found their best 1,000-acre patch too, right? That's what they're doing.
That's what I think. Yep.
Yep.
I think if we could go out and find all them, we'd all do really good,
Yeah.
I mean, you can get on any buck at any given time, and he'll take you for the run, too, 10, 12 miles and all over God's creation. And I got to tell you a quick story. This is a real good one. My buddy Rick Ash and I were hunting. This is probably 10 years ago. My brother was actually there that day. Well, anyway, Rick had come off that mountain the night before, and he said, wow, he goes, there's a great big buck track all over the place up there. He goes, he couldn't really do much with it. He was everywhere. Next morning, we decided after that, let's go up and hunt that mountain. So me, Rick, and my brother were hiking up in, and boom, here's this huge buck track. I'm like, Rick, that buck is heading right for my camera.
Yeah.
I go, what are the chances that he walked by that camera? Sure enough, we'll go up where the camera is. There's his track going right by the camera. I pull the card out, and I put it in my card reader, and I look at it, and I go, what time is it? Yeah. And I think he said it was like 9 o'clock or something. And I go, this was 45 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I look at Rick, and I look at my brother, and I go, who's taking this track? And they're like, well, I don't know. I said, I'll take it. Yeah. I'll go. I learned a lot that day. I think we always learn every day we're in the woods, but I learned a real lot that day.
Only at Hunstock, you'll have the chance to win Lanny Benoit's legendary Gray Ghost Chevy Suburban and a one-of-a-kind Lanny Benoit Signature Series Woodman Arms muzzleloader, the first one ever made, plus Lanny Suburban. All you have to do is buy your tickets online to Hunstock. Every single person who buys an online ticket at www.huntstockevents.com will get a raffle ticket to this historic raffle when you check in at Hunstock. This raffle is going to be at both Hunstock events, Hunstock, New York, and Hunstock, Massachusetts, and we're going to draw a winner at Hunstock, Massachusetts on Sunday. However, you do not need to be present to win. You'll put down your name, email address, and phone number, and if you win, we will get in touch with you.
Well, guys, looking forward to seeing you at Hunstock, either in New York, Massachusetts, or both. So, won't be long now. New York will be first. We'll be there talking deer hunting. Hope to see all you Adirondack guys there. And then in Massachusetts, I know we're going to see all your people that are usually there and some more. And don't forget about your meatloaf sandwiches.
I struck off, and he was on the side of this mountain, about below halfway. The mountain is like 4 miles long. He seems to be keeping that same general elevation. He's trucking north. I think he rubbed a couple trees, and all of a sudden he headed up the mountain a little bit. I think he went up to the first like little shelf up there. I see where there was some does. He come right back down north again.
Yeah. On his
right
highway.
then, I should have probably either started running, which that wouldn't have helped. I found out later on, but I truck on after him, go through all this. He finally drops down in this green. I think it was like 4 o'clock then, so it's getting time. I got to make a decision. I said, well, he might be right here in this green. He might be right here. So I go down in the green. No, he comes out of that onto the next mountain. Now it's 4:30. Pull out my... Didn't even have... I wasn't using that Topo app.
Yeah.
I was using a GPS at the time. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I know about where I am, but let me position myself. And I look at it. I'm like, huh. I think I was 1 point something from the Moose River. So, to bring that into perspective, that's a long freaking ways from our tent camp. So I was trying to call my brother and Rick on the radio. Nothing. So I start trucking out. It's dark. Finally get out where I'm like, I should be able to reach them on a radio. Now I holler. Finally, where the heck are you? We've been trying to call you all day. I go, well, long story. I said, I wasted the day on that buck. Now here's where I got really cocky that morning. I said, 45 minutes ahead of me. He's as good as dead, right? That was the cocky Chris.
Yeah.
Well, the humble Chris that night was a totally different attitude. I read that wrong the whole way. I probably should have just found a different buck.
Yeah.
He was going home.
Yeah.
He wasn't from there.
Yeah.
Take the day before, Rick saw his track all over the mountain. That buck was going home. He wasn't from there. He came there looking for a doe or had a doe, but he was definitely heading home. Probably up by Jim Massett's camp or something is what I'm thinking. That's the direction he was going. He was trucking her that way. And I mean, a mile from Moose River, less actually or something, he was in that country. And I said, over the years, I've seen that a few times where you get going on them and you can just tell.
Now
Now I know. I don't really waste my time on that. Joe talks about it a lot in his seminars too, about them dates when you catch it that mid-November where you're just going.
They're just going. Yeah.
Everybody's always heard that. That's a perfect example of I didn't read it right. I was cocky. I thought for sure I was going to catch that buck because I took off after him pretty decent. Gained some ground was my thing, and then I said, well, I should be pretty close to him. There was no catching that buck.
Yeah. All you needed was him to feed and lay down, but he wasn't even thinking about that.
Catch a doe, anything.
Yeah.
He did go up and check that one doe group, and I could have got lucky there. If there was a hot doe, the situation would have been totally different, but it wasn't. He was definitely heading home. The only thing I have is a picture of him. Great big 10-point.
Yeah, and a good story.
And a good story. It was fun.
Learning opportunity.
And did a little bit of learning. He did show me a couple spots, though.
Yeah.
The other bucks, he was crossing this one creek. I've had cameras there since then, and I've gotten a lot of bucks on camera there. So he showed me. I learned that too.
Yep.
It wasn't always me being stupid, and, making the wrong call. I actually learned some good stuff, but that's where he was headed. It's big country.
Yeah.
It's big country where our tent camp is, and he was heading for some real big country.
Yeah.
You can go, I don't know how many miles and miles. At least, if you go east from our tent camp, the first road you're going to hit is Route 8. Speculator.
Yeah. 20 miles away or something?
At least.
Yeah.
It's a long ways. And if I go north, the plains,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're in some pretty good sized country.
Speaking of Jim Massett, had him on the podcast, and of course he's famous for him and Tom carrying their deer out.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever carry
Never.
deer out of the woods?
Never. I had back surgery when I was 42, 4, something like that. Got metal rods in my back, so no, I'm not carrying bucks. I never did carry one. I've watched Big Bulk do it.
Oh, he does it?
No, he's carried some, yeah.
Yep.
But I don't think you'll see him carrying a whole bunch either.
Yeah.
You
Well, some people say it's much easier than dragging, and then Jim Massett probably doesn't weigh more than 130 pounds.
Yeah, but
140. And
when Jim was carrying bucks, that man was
rugged.
He was as rugged, lean and mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're him and Tom, great guys. Great guys.
Yeah.
But I have no desire to carry a buck. Yeah.
So
I joke around about it, and I mean it in nothing but good humor about the 200-pound buck. That's a big thing in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Everybody. That's the last thing in the world I want to kill. Yeah. It is. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I would. I don't want to kill him. That 196-pounder was plenty for me.
Yeah.
That was a long drag.
Well, and 160-pounders don't drag too easy either.
No, when you're dragging some of these bucks are dragged 3-4 miles.
Yeah. As the crow flies.
Yeah,
and then
it's no joke. I wish we had a better. It's the one thing with New York State. Anytime the state takes over, the Boreas Pond area. I'm gonna use that for an example because it was pretty recent that the state acquired that. It had a tremendous road system in it, and the first thing the state did is put gates up. So yeah, we have access to it, but everything is by foot here.
Yeah.
The first thing the New York State does is put a gate. They just don't want you using.
Are they afraid the roads are going to get all beat up muddy season or what?
I don't know. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but it's depressing, that you can't utilize some of them roads.
Yep. Now, it's kind of interesting to think, out west, and the main way to get deer out of the woods or any game is packing it out. But nobody does that in the Northeast.
So I think you'll see more of that coming.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think it's just because people really want to get their weight. If you pack it out, you're not going to get a weight.
Well, our thing was, we want to hang them up at tent camp. And
Yeah, exactly.
That was our
tradition.
thing, but I think you're going to see more of that coming.
Yeah, probably with the next generation, the young guys will.
You're going to see more of that. We use deer carts. We have a one-wheel cart that's phenomenal. It's amazing. Scott Burdick.
Is that the brand one wheel? Or it just has one wheel?
One wheel.
Yeah.
It's like a motorcycle wheel. And Lanky shot that buck. The first time we used it, Lanky shot a beautiful buck way back in this July. So we take the cart in. Now you know what it's like in a beaver fly. it's like briery and grass, and it's nothing you'd think a cart, right? You would think no way.
Yeah.
Me and Eric we had that buck on that cart, and we headed out of there, and we both looked at each other and said, "Wow,
Just cruise through.
this is amazing." So carts, they're huge up here. It's one great way, especially with some of these old logging roads from years and years ago. You can drag your buck to that skid road. Now take your cart a mile up that to it, so that's a mile less dragging if you can get it on a cart. So that's huge. The packing out west, I think that's an area thing, don't you? Like,
Yeah, but it's tradition.
they're killing
I'm
some
sure.
bigger game, elk and stuff. I mean, obviously you're not dragging that, but I think that's where a lot of that comes into play. That's kind of tradition there.
Yeah, it is.
But I do think you'll see more of that here. I'm going to buy a nice set. There's a lot of sets you can buy to fits in a small pack.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see us doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think it makes sense.
And then, with everybody's got their phone or video recorder or whatever with them nowadays, you can get some good pictures and video and stuff.
And they've got portable scales too that don't weigh that much, so you could bring out in the woods and actually get your weight if you want it. I think.
Yeah, if you want it,
Because I don't think that tradition's going to go away. People are still going to want to weigh.
It's a big thing, and I think it's real big in Maine. That seems to be the thing. Everybody wants to kill a 200+ pound buck up there.
Vermont too, and I
Is
think
it
New
a
Hampshire.
thing in Vermont?
Oh yeah.
Is
yeah.
it?
The Benoits and everybody just wants the 200 pounders there too.
Oddly enough, I don't think it's much of a thing here. I mean,
Yep.
it doesn't. We just want to kill a big buck. That's what it boils down to. I would run into Jim Doyle quite frequently, at least once a season in the woods. Naturally, it's a great place to see Jim.
Yeah.
And I always thought, he's not a big guy.
No.
He's getting up there in age now. I mean, Jim's going to kill a 200-pound buck. What's he going to do with that thing up in there, you know?
Yeah.
So, I'll have to talk to Jim. Maybe his plan is to cut him up. I don't know. I mean, him and Jeff hunt hard.
Yeah.
He's actually doesn't live far from me at all.
Jim's a great guy.
Super good guy.
I was coming out for I think it was for Donito's party there. And I saw Jim at Northeast Big Buck Club banquet in Massachusetts. So I was coming out here for something, and that was the first time I met him. And he was like, "If you're coming out, you can just stay at my house.
Really?
You can sleep in Jeff's childhood bed." And it's like, that's just there's some really good. Hunters are just great people.
99% of the hunters that I know or meet in the Adirondacks, they're as good of people as you're ever going to find.
Yep.
They're, like I said about that kid, Sean, helping me drag that buck out. That was the first day I'd met him. Now, we're good friends now, but he didn't know me from anybody. And they took, half their day.
Yeah.
And helped get that buck out. And that's...
Oh, dragon parties are fun. It's fun to be around anybody who just got their buck, because the energy levels up, and
it's unbelievable.
Even if you don't know the person, it's just like, well, there's a nice dead buck on the ground.
That same, that's a great way to put it. It's the energy is. You
wish you could live in that energy constantly.
Here's another one. I'm gonna make this a quick story. It's where is it? That buck right there.
Yeah.
Muzzleloader season. I'm up in this cutting, and I look up and I see a deer. So I got on the radio and I said to my son, "Whereabouts are you?" And he told me, I said, "You're literally on the other side of the cut from this deer." And all of a sudden that deer picked its head up and I saw that rack. I said, "Nate, it's a nice buck." And I'm looking, doesn't that deer turn and walk right towards my son? And just like you scripted this, boom!
You got to watch it too.
No, because it was like a strip cut and then a old cut, so it was all grown up. And he went into that. My son was on the other edge of it,
And you're
that buck's.
In your head, you're just going, I want to hear a shot.
I did.
Yeah.
Boom! He shoots.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And just as quick as that happened, I look, and that buck comes boiling out of there. I'm like, yeah, he's not hit, and he is like you lit a fire under his ass. I have nothing around me. It's a pretty open cut. Drop to my knees, and he's coming straight down that cut to me. I'm like, all right. Wide open. He's running flat out. Just turn, Just give me something. And he made a slight turn, and I touched it off, and I knew I hit him.
Yeah.
My son comes out. Now, he just went from missing that bucket, I think it was 15 yards. Mm-hmm. That happens.
Yep.
To now, it's on again. You know, it's not over. So I said, I got blood down here. Come on down. So he comes down. Right about that time, I hear something on my radio. I pull my radio out, and it was, I almost think it was Woody. He goes, did you just shoot? I go, where are you? And he told me, I'm like, well, you're in there.
Yeah.
You're where he went.
Yeah.
I go, who else is in? He goes, we're all in here. I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, Slick, my brother. He goes, Hunter, Bob, Bulk. He goes, we're all in here. I go.
And you didn't know they were in there?
Had no clue.
Yeah.
This was.
Yeah.
They had. So to get up in there, you either come in from our tent camp, which is one way in, one way out, or miles from the road. Well, they came in from the road. So I'm like, well, you guys, let them know. I go, how come they can't hear us talking? Because we should be on the same channel. We weren't sure what channel to use. I'm going to go back to the channel. We'll get everyone on the same channel. So he gets on, tells them, all right, Chris, that was Chris that shot, because they heard the shot. Funny, Bulk put the video up of this on his page, and you could hear me shoot in it. Bulk started recording when my son shot. So he starts recording, and he's talking, and then you hear my shot.
Yeah.
And he gets that kind of weird look on his face, because at that point, he was thinking it was Woody. He didn't know we were there.
Yeah.
All right, so we got the bucket. Now we got everybody on the same page. I'm like, let me figure out what he's going to do, how bad he's hit. I get tracking him. I figured out within the first couple 100 yards that he was hit, but he wasn't mortally hit.
Yeah.
Bare ground. So I start going, and he's going into this. It's pretty gnarly. Spruce, green, thick, right where you'd think he'd go.
Uh-huh.
My son is with me, and I'm like, let me keep my eyes down. You keep your eyes up. And I'm struggling with blood, but enough to keep going. Bulk had it in his head that this buck was going to cross this little beaver dam. Well, he was right. He got there just in the nick of time and finished the buck off for me. But there...
Was he filming it?
He wasn't filming at that point. Boy, imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he got to the other side of this beaver dam, and he made this little, I guess it was, for whatever reason, must have been open, but he cut some branches and made something to break up his silhouette standing there, I guess.
Yep.
And sure enough, that buck come right out, and he dumped him right there. That's all on the video. It's a pretty old one, too. That was...
I got to check it out. I don't think I've seen his page. What's it called on YouTube? Do you know?
ADK Cowboys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was the one that was ADK Tracker. But
it was on
now it's,
yeah, but it's on the page still. It's actually in that picture up there. That's the buck.
Yeah.
That's all of us right afterward. Hunter, Bob, Woody, Nate, me, Slick, and Eric.
That's awesome.
So here's where the energy comes in that you were talking about.
Right.
Look at us in that picture. What is it? What do you see?
Yeah. Proud.
Ah.
Pride. Yeah.
You know, just it was a good time. It was a real good time.
Well, I mean, it doesn't probably happen that often where you guys are close enough together where
The chances of that
all
happening,
you guys can meet up for a great picture like that too. You know, like
That-
right after it was dead.
it was you. So most people would have thought that was all planned.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yep.
Wasn't planned. Actually, I wasn't even supposed to be up in that cutting. Early in the morning, I was going to hunt this mountain, but I had to cross this creek to get to it, and that it had rained so much prior, there was no way I was getting across that creek.
Yeah.
So that put me, here's fate again, that put me up in that cut.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And, Eric took the time to put a bunch of video and pictures together, and he's the one, as far as the YouTube and all that, that's all him.
Yeah.
He's the one that takes the time for all that. We do the easy part. We just take some pictures and
Yeah.
a little bit of video, and
Yeah.
it's all him that does that. I have no part of it.
Yeah. Well, for anybody watching that doesn't know about these guys, go follow that YouTube page.
Yeah,
ADK
definitely
Cowboys.
follow ADK Cowboys. It's good for a laugh, if nothing else.
Well, you guys know how to have fun. We learned that at Hunstock
Yeah, we definitely
last year.
That was a lot of fun. We had a blast out there. Definitely, I'm excited to go in New York. I'm not sure what day I'm going to go. But definitely going to make a presence there. I'm going to try to do a family thing this year. I know typically hunting in family it's tough, but I'm hoping to get my son, my granddaughter, my wife, and kind of do a family event.
Yeah.
And that was what I did notice with Hunstock. It is definitely geared that way. It's
Yeah, bring the kids.
Bring the kids.
This place has a fishing pond for kids. There's a bunch of bass
Yeah.
in there, so kids will be fishing in that the whole weekend. And
yeah, that's and they're the future anyway. We were just talking about that before you started recording. That if we can help out a kid or just spark something in them.
I mean, it's crazy too. It's not just kids, but it's how many people in their 30s that never hunted but now want to because of things like podcasts and YouTube. And I get messages from people that you would just never expect.
Yeah.
Chinese guys that hardly speak any English.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm interested in hunting. This one guy, Fu Shuang Li, came to a Hunstock last year, and he messages me all the time. And we've got these. The one in Mass, you kill a farm deer. The state Mass Wildlife will get a farm deer, kill it, bring it to the event, and field dress it there. So they do show people how to field dress.
Mm-hmm.
People have never done it before. Then show them how to skin it. Show them how to process a deer, start to finish, and then we eat the deer there and grill it fresh. And I was going through the pictures after Hunstock, and Fu Shuang Li was right there watching this whole thing. He's got a notepad. And he's
Was he
just,
really?
Just taking notes, watching everything. And I just think that's the greatest thing.
That is. Again, I would have never guessed that in a month of Sundays that.
Had this Brazilian dude message me the other day, hey, this is my first year hunting. I found your podcast. Can you help me out with this and that? And I get that all the time, and it's cool.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that part of it.
I enjoyed that a lot, and I told you about meeting Noah from Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, I just clicked with that kid, and it's in him. I could tell by talking to him. He's hooked. And,
Oh yeah.
And I mean, he's in Maine. He's close to all of them. He's got a great support system, and we found each other on, I think it was Facebook maybe.
Yeah.
And I see Rick Labby's friends with him on there, so he's got a lot of people he can resource from. But
Yeah.
to meet Noah up there, that kind of sealed the deal for me.
Yeah.
He was just a great kid, and I think if we all can continue that, just
Yeah.
try to positive spin the best we can on it. I mean, we all have our down days hunting. Let's face it. It's not all glory. It's not. There's a lot of downtime. But if we can try to spin this in the best positive way, spark some interest in some young kids,
Yeah.
and get them interested in getting out there and try it.
mentoring doesn't have to be person to person. They don't have to be following your boot prints, the way it was back in the day when the internet is allowed. You can be a mentor just by sending some messages back and forth, getting on a phone call every once in a while, and that's what's awesome about it.
It is, and just trying to be a little positive about it. And there's a lot to be negative about when you're hunting. I hate to say it. When you hunt every day, all season long, and you go weeks and you're not seeing nothing, it's getting, like, you're getting down.
Yeah.
You just keep grinding. You're going to try to make it happen one way or another, but there's a lot of downtime. And, I mean, I guess you can't really use the word negative, but you get what I'm trying to say, that it's not all glory. You got to have fun. You got to like the everything about nature. And I videoed an otter last year. It was the first freeze. This beaver pond was froze over. It's just a thin layer. It was the first freeze. And I kept hearing this popping. And I'd look out on that pond. I wouldn't see nothing. Well, it took me a while to figure out what was going on. And it was an otter. He was going under, and then he'd break the ice, but he'd go right back under.
Yeah.
Well, within an hour, Pat, he had punched at least 30, 40 holes in that pond.
Yeah.
And I'm videoing him. Next thing you know, he comes up on shore, and I didn't know it at the time, but I knew it after. He had a little toilet over there that he was using.
Little breathing holes, too,
Yeah.
I wonder if he does that all as the ice gets thicker. He probably just every day goes out there and punches it.
I would have. Eventually, I think it probably gets to the point where he can't, but he may do that. I saw that otter there 2 more times last season, same pond.
Yeah, sometimes it's.
But that takes. So that was the highlight of my day. There was no deer. There was nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make nothing happen, but it was pretty cool. I was able to spend some time and watch the otter.
Yeah, I was bow hunting in a tree stand a couple years ago, and watch a bobcat come in, and I'm looking at this squirrel on a log, and I'm watching the bobcat, and he's hunting this squirrel, and he gets it, and I watched him for 10 minutes, just like a house cat. He's playing with the squirrel like a house cat does with a mouse when they get him, right? They know they've got him dead to rights.
Yeah.
And he just this bobcat's throwing the squirrel up in the air. It's flipping. He's catching it. He's playing, batting it around with his paws. He's playing with it just like a house cat, and that was a great experience.
Yeah,
just watching
that's pretty cool. I don't. Do you see many bobcats? How many?
Oh,
do
yeah.
you see? Do you?
Yeah.
See, I don't.
In the suburbs, there's tons of them.
Yeah, I've seen one bobcat while deer hunting in the Adirondacks.
Yep.
I've never seen another one. I've seen tracks, obviously, but
yeah, I'll see three or four of them a season.
That's
probably.
pretty cool.
And every once in a while, you'll see a bunch of the the kits coming through, and they're just little kittens, and you'll see 3 or 4 of them at the same time.
You know what I do see a lot of? Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of martin.
We got a lot of down there too. We've got a lot of fishers. Fishers are everywhere. I see tons of those during the deer season.
Yeah. There used to be more up this way, but I still see some fisher tracks and stuff.
One thing we don't see a lot of are these guys.
You don't see a lot of bear, huh?
Not where I'm at. Every once in a while they range over there. Like the other day, there was a town page near me.
Yeah.
Black bear spotted. The next town over. Once a year, maybe like one ranges over.
Yeah.
There was an interesting one. This black bear a couple of years ago was spotted. He went all the way. He ranged like 150 miles. He was just, for some reason, something in his head, and he kept going towards the ocean, going through all these towns, going through cities, and then he made it all the way to the tip of Cape Cod.
No way.
Provincetown, so you couldn't go any further. He went to the tip. They tranquilized him, brought him all the way back to where they dropped him off, center of the state somewhere. Did the same thing the next year.
No way.
They hit, because they put a GPS collar on him at that point. He did the same thing next year. He ranged all the way out there again, went to the point, the tip of Provincetown. What the hell is that?
Who knows?
What was that?
He wanted to go to the ocean, Pat.
I mean,
who knows? I mean, you ever tried? Well, you said you don't see a lot of bear. You ever tried to track a bear?
No.
Yeah.
No,
They don't seem to stop moving.
I've only seen 2 bears hunting, and it was from my Vermont camp.
Yeah.
They were out of there for many years, and they just started showing back up 15 years ago there.
Yeah, there's a lot of bear in the Adirondacks, so definitely. Yeah. Hunter Bob's son shot a real big one 2 years ago, 400 and some pounds.
Wow.
428 or something it was. And that's, to me, that's more like
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, what are you going to do with that thing? I know they had a heck of a time getting that out. But the last bear I shot, muzzleloader. It was with a muzzleloader. And I've had people cook bear, and it was really good.
Yeah.
And I've also had it, and I didn't really care for it. So
Yep.
when I shot that one, it wasn't a huge one, so it should have been decent.
Yep.
And I had it all ground up into sausage, and I just didn't really care for it. So I decided that I'm not going to shoot another bear.
Yeah.
But, if
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat it,
Yep.
so I'm probably not going to shoot another bear.
What's your favorite way to eat your venison?
Well, it used to be I liked whole loin wrapped in bacon on a grill.
Yep. Oh, that's
Used
great.
to be.
Yep.
A good buddy of mine, and maybe you've had this before, made corned venison.
Never had that.
Me either. That's my new favorite one.
Really?
It's unbelievable.
Really?
Now, I don't know how to do it yet, but he's
Yep.
going to show me.
Yep.
But it was, it's like corned beef, but corned venison. It was amazing. Yeah, so that might be the new favorite.
You ever slow cooked a neck roast?
I haven't. No.
I did that a couple of years ago for the first time. Boy, was that fantastic. Little red wine in the bottom of it, potatoes, onions. I forget what you do around the outside of it, but it was just an amazing recipe, and boy, was that good. It gets all tender, breaks away. It was delicious.
Yeah, I do a lot of breakfast sausage with venison. I take mine up to a butcher shop, and I have hot dogs made. But I like my loins whole,
Yeah.
wrapped in bacon.
Yeah.
Quick cook, don't just fast. And it's really good.
Yep, I've started
Really
doing
good.
the whole loins too, because the way I grew up, everybody in my family they would just cut everything up into little medallions, and pan fry everything like that, and it's really good that way. But I've started doing the back straps and loins. I'll cut the back strap into thirds,
Yep.
but keep it big chunk.
Yeah.
Get that nice pink center.
Yeah. There's bacon too. That the place where I take my deer, they make somehow bacon.
Really?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's pretty good. It doesn't cook up quite like regular bacon as you would imagine, but it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a versatile. There's so many ways you can cook it.
Yeah,
Tacos, burgers.
fry it with an onion's good enough for me.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Now, do you eat heart?
Oh, that's one.
I love heart.
Yeah. So for years, I had to always bring them home and pickle them because my daughter loved pickled deer heart. And believe it or not, other people that didn't eat their heart would bring it and drop it off at my house.
How would you pick? Would you cut it up first?
Yeah. Parboil
Yep.
and
Yep.
then pickle it. Now my daughter doesn't live at home anymore, so we fry it up right at camp that
Yeah.
night, fresh, and it's great.
Yeah,
I used to eat liver years ago,
I like liver.
and I loved it. And then one time, there was something in the liver, some type of a worm, a fluke, or something, and I just never. Since then,
Not worth it.
I don't know.
My wife's Russian, and her parents live with us, and they absolutely love liver. So anytime I get a deer, they do these interesting Russian dishes with liver, a liver salad. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's like delicious.
So you say Russian? They're known for smoking a lot of meat too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and all their fish, they like to do that.
I know that. I've read a lot about the hunting and stuff over there, and I know that the Russians like to smoke meat.
Yeah,
a
they
lot of
do.
it.
Well, they grew up in. She's Russian, but she grew up in Kyrgyzstan, which was one of the Soviet states, before it fell in 1992. Kyrgyzstan is like, there's good hunting there, actually. The guys like to, I don't even know what it is, big mountain sheep and stuff that are, you can get good deals on it. But I went to Kyrgyzstan to see where she grew up, and boy, was that an interesting place. It's one of the poorest countries in the whole world.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. It's poorer than Ethiopia, and I mean, it's poor. And, they're surrounded by 25,000-foot mountains. There's no highways getting in there, so they're on kind of an island out
Desolate.
there. And when the USSR broke up, they didn't have a big economy, so it's just really poor right now. But yeah, the meat they had out there was interesting. They cook everything all the way through, which is the only bad thing, because my mother-in-law goes down to the freezer and gets venison. There were a couple times, she was boiling like backstrap and tenderloin, and I had to tell them, I'm like, guys, I started putting big X's on the backstrap and tenderloin because they couldn't read the English on it,
Yeah.
It's like, just don't boil or the backstrap.
Don't do that to
this stuff. Go ahead and cook it the way you want to cook it.
Yeah.
But
that's again, there's another case of it's where you come from and how you cook and what you do, and yeah, that's.
I think they're worried about they cook everything over, probably because there's not like an FDA or there's not like oversight, so they just cook their meat well done, everything.
Yeah, the only thing I like well done is my burger. Everything else I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want it rare. Did you hear? Not to change the subject, but did you see the podcast? I guess it was Hale did it. Bigwoods Bucks with Billy Moles.
Was that recent?
Yes.
That's the only one I haven't heard yet. I've heard all their podcasts. I haven't
So
listened to that one yet.
I've followed Billy Moles for a long time. This guy's he's the real McCoy.
Is he the Alaskan?
He's a guide in Alaska.
Yeah.
Farm boy out of Wisconsin. Had the passion to be in the mountains and lived his dream, raising his family now. But that's a great podcast. That's
I'm going to listen to that on the
You'll
way
have to
home
listen to
tomorrow.
that.
Yeah. Got a long ride.
And
Listen
then
to that.
follow Billy on YouTube. He's
Yeah.
got some amazing videos.
Yeah, I will.
Really, really good stuff. I couldn't imagine doing stuff like. I think I have a hard day in the mountains here. Well, this is nothing. That's a whole different level.
Yeah.
Alaska's is.
Well, you don't have to worry about grizzly bears here, at least.
No, definitely don't. No. So when were we going to get you to the Adirondacks? You said you didn't hunt them.
I've never hunted in the Adirondacks. I'm in this part of my life where I've got young kids. They're, 1 year and 4 now.
Oh yeah.
So it's hard to do trips
It
out.
is,
I take all of bow season off too. Like I take October, November, December off. Now that I've just worked for myself, I hunt hard there, and I hunt so hard that I feel guilty.
Yeah.
When
I
it's
get it.
like, all right, if I tag out, do I want to do I want to go travel? Yes, I do. I want to just go, but I feel too guilty, and I want to.
I don't blame you.
Want to be home till the kids get older. I'm sure I'll do a lot more of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna hunt the Adirondacks. I want to get on a track this year at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's here or it's New Hampshire or Maine.
Yeah. I think there's getting to be more hunters now. They say there isn't, but I feel like I'm seeing more.
I think at least if there's not more hunters, the hunters are realizing that they got to work harder, so they're getting deeper where you wouldn't have seen them back,
Yeah.
So you're just seeing more because they're learning from YouTube and they're learning from podcasts. And the hunting beast Infault there out in Wisconsin talks about it all the time since he started, all the forum and the stuff that he's doing, built a following. His spots now in Wisconsin, he used to go, 3 miles out in a swamp through up to his chest sometimes wearing waders and get out to his honey holes on little islands out there. And now he goes out there and there's people there.
There's someone there.
So now he's reverse engineering it. Everybody now is going out deep because he's taught them to, and now he looks for overlooked places closer to the parking lot because people aren't hunting close now; they're going deep, but the deer are just
Well, that works out great for
bouncing.
Dan because he's getting a little bit older. So
yeah, yeah,
heck,
yeah. So I think it's probably some of that too. You know,
yeah. We there's a standing joke amongst us. Hunter Bob always has this thing: 3 miles, got to be 3 miles. Well, Adirondacks, you're already
yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just because you drove the only road up
Yep.
there.
A quarter of a mile off
Yeah.
the road is deep, just
Yeah.
as deep. You know.
So, Woody shot a really nice buck the year before last that track across the road.
And they don't give a shit about the roads.
No.
Hunter, you build it in your head that it's a barrier to them sometimes.
It is
It just
not.
isn't.
No.
Not even a highway.
No, it's I got a really cool story when you talk about barriers and stuff, rivers and things like that are somewhat of a barrier to us.
Yeah.
That's their safety zone. You know, that's how deer survive. You know,
Yep.
with coyotes and stuff. So there was this huge 9-point, not too far from our tent camp. This 3-4 years ago. And he wasn't really, he was in an area that like Lanky hunted and another guy that hunts up there. So I just kind of honored that, didn't really go over there. Well, it got late in the season and they were still getting pictures of this beast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. I got back to our tent camp one night and I told my son, Nate, I said, I'm going over there. So I went over there. Don't I cut his track the first morning. Not only do I cut his track, the direction he was going towards the lake, which kind of put him in an even better spot. Mm-hmm. So I take that buck down in. He goes through this small cut from it was like 5 years old. I could tell it was definitely night when he went through it. You know, he walked right out in the middle of it and stuff. Fed heavily, and then he walked up this hill. So I said, oh, the lake's right here.
Yeah.
I walked this whole skid road.
Yeah.
He's up there. I know he's up there. So I'm creeping up this hill. Now, the top of this hill isn't huge. It might be 10 acres at the most. And then it starts dropping off. So when I get up, you know, now my eye level is, I can see off and I'm stopping and I'm thinking like any second. And I take a few more steps and nothing. Finally, I'm fully exposed. Pretty good view. Pretty confident he wasn't in my sight. I go about 40 more yards out onto that top and it's getting green.
Yeah.
And I see his track going to that green. And I go, why do I feel like I'm a sitting duck out here? You know, as soon as I saw that track going there, I kind of knew. Sure enough, I go over there. There's his bed. Running track out of it. He busted me.
Yeah.
I call my brother on the radio. I thought he was in the area. And I told him where I was, that I just jumped a big buck off that hill. He goes, heck, I'm not that far from you. And I said, well, book down that old skid road and get by that pond. There's a little pond. I said, get there. Well, he gets there, and I'm trucking down through on that track. I'm like, are you there? Are you there? Yeah, I'm here. I'm like, holy shit. Any second, he's going to shoot.
Yeah,
It's going right for him.
Uh-huh.
No shot. I come out to the road. I look left, look right. No. Where's my brother? He's not there. I go, where are you? I call him on the radio. He goes, I'm right here. And he takes like 5 steps. Well, there was a sharp bend in that skid road, and I could see him. And I point down. I go, he crossed here.
right there.
So my brother comes down to me. It's like 11 o'clock now. Great big track. I know what buck this is. It's big. He goes, what are you going to do now? I go, nothing. He goes, what do you mean nothing? You're not stopping now, I know. I go, do you feel that? He goes, feel what? I go, you don't feel that wind? No. I said, I can feel it. It's right on my neck, blowing right up his track.
Yeah.
I said, it's where he's headed, pointless. I said, we'll get him tomorrow. So go back to tent camp. Drinking some beers, frying up some venison. Eric stopped, Boke. And I was telling him about it, and I told him what buck it was. I said, he's the real deal. He goes, well, let's go in there tomorrow. So we made a plan the next day. We'll split up, try to find his track again. Don't we find his track? Eric takes it. He starts cutting off north. It was really heading north. And then all of a sudden, he turned a little west. I said, heck, he's heading right for the river, North Branch. Goes right into the branch and doesn't come out. Eric went up one side, I went up the other. We went forever. That buck didn't come out.
He stayed in there.
So what I figure happened between what I did the day before and that day, he had had enough of us. So that was the last day of season 2.
He said, how do you like me now?
Oh, it gets better. So we went back, had a few hours of daylight left, tore down tent camp, season's over. Retired forest ranger, who's a good friend of mine, calls me. It was like a week later. He goes, hey, I heard about that big buck they put into the branch. He goes, I'm going to send you a picture.
No.
So he sends me a picture. I go, that's him. I go, where did you get that picture? He goes, he's way down on my land. I go, what? He goes, yeah, he's down on my land. Now, as straight lining it, just on a topo map.
See, I thought you were going to say he drowned in there, and,
No.
and the ranger found him drowned.
He was 13 miles,
Holy shit.
straight line. I have that picture at home. He blew it up and brought it up to me. It's a giant. I'll send it to you.
So
It's
he was he swimming down the river or
no,
walking down
So
it?
what that buck did is he took the river just like he would with coyotes,
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
and that's how he lost us. And
Yeah.
that's how he's lost coyotes probably who knows how many times in his life.
But you guys covered a lot.
We
stretch
covered.
of it, right?
We didn't go far enough,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. But he took it for a ways. The river, it sounds like.
Long ways.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We didn't just go out 200 yards
Yeah,
and
yeah.
call it quits. No,
Yeah.
No, well, that wasn't the case. So that buck, I know what he was doing, why he was down here. He went to the winter yard. We just sped up the process. He's had enough of us
Yeah.
messing around, and he just booked that day.
Yeah, he's like, I'll go early.
In that picture, I mean, his rack's huge,
Huh.
but he looked poor. He was thin
Yeah.
and run down. So he boogied right out of there, didn't even stop.
Yep.
Got right out.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty cool to I wish the state would do a little bit more for the deer winter yards. They just they ignore it. And
What could they do?
did you see what Maine's finally doing? And they it took them a long time to get to do this, but the state of Maine is now
Saying you can't
identifying winter yards, trying to make agreements or purchases or different things to preserve them winter yards,
Yeah.
so they're not getting just cut right to
Yeah.
pieces. And I mean, there's part of our winter yard south of here got logged like 8 years ago, and they hammered it, and there wasn't a deer in it.
So the winter yards aren't really in the national park where there's no cutting. The winter yards
they're
are
down
in the cutting zones.
They're down on private land. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. County, some state too, but it's out. They get out of the Adirondack. There's
Yeah.
nothing up there.
Yeah.
For the most part. I just wish there was more they could do for them. Preserve them winter yards, and I mean, I don't know how you would do it. I forget that it was a club in Maine that was the driving edge of this, and it took them a long time. But they're getting funding, like a lot of it too, and I guess the government is matching whatever the state funds do. So, I mean, we all know what happens in Maine. Some of them winter yards got caught years ago, and
Yeah.
it takes forever to get that back.
Oh yeah. 100 years. I mean.
Yeah, so if
some of those-
the state could do something like that, something similar to what Maine did anyway, to help preserve some of these winter yards, and maybe it would be beneficial to the deer. It couldn't hurt them,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it would take a lot of people
buying up a lot of those private properties, or putting some kind of a
some type of an agreement,
yeah.
like a tax incentive maybe on
Yeah,
your property
exactly.
taxes.
Yep.
And, I mean, say you're a guy and you own 400 acres in that winter yard. Well, naturally, you want to log your land and stuff and help pay
it's
for
worth
the taxes.
X amount, and yep.
Yeah. So come up with ways to incentivize it. Maybe him to do it in pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
There's probably a million ways you could dream up ideas to do this, and
Yep.
I just wish they would do something.
You ever had ramps before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so like the same way you harvest ramps, where you only take up to 10% of it, you leave 90% of it,
Right.
so that it can regenerate.
Right, and
Yeah,
let it-
something like that.
Yeah, just with that idea in mind, work with the landowner to try to preserve that winter yard. I hope this all just came about in Maine, like I think a year ago. So I'm curious to follow that and see
Yeah.
how it all works out. I guarantee, I mean, they've got a lot of people behind it. So I think it's going to be huge. Now, it's going to take years.
Yeah.
It's not overnight. It's not going to happen, but
Yeah, wasn't it something about along the rivers? They can't cut. They got to leave like 200 yards or something of it along the river in Maine
it could
now.
be, yeah.
Something like that.
And there was also there was land purchases. They were paying top dollar for it,
Yep.
and I mean that's great. That's great for the Adirondacks were loaded with deer in the 50s and 60s. Loaded. Like a blind man would kill a big buck.
Yeah. It's paradise.
It was
It still is, but
it was crawling with deer.
yeah.
And then fast forward into the late 70s, early 80s and stuff, and it was pretty poor.
Same thing in Vermont. I feel like it was
pretty
kind of
poor.
that same cycle too.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I do feel there's a little bit more, I think there is some more deer now than then. I'm not sure why. I don't really.
We're seeing it at my deer camp too. Same thing. Now
little bit
it seems
more-
like they're coming back, and the bucks are actually getting older, and there's something going on.
Yeah, there probably is, and I don't know what it is really, to be honest with you. And, but whatever it is, I hope it keeps going on.
Yeah.
And with the help of, I don't know if we could form some clubs or something to. The winter yards, that's where all the kill happens. That's where these deer die, in the winter yards. So if there was a way to help that, I think it'd be
The
worth
problem
it.
is the politicians don't know. They
No, they probably
don't
don't.
know our. They don't.
No.
My partner was talking about this yesterday as we're driving through the hills over in the beautiful farm country. We're down near where Hunstock is, and we just stopped in at an Amish store and got a sandwich. And we're watching these Amish guys. It's like, man, their way of life is just so different. It's kind of cool. They're living a simple life. And, then we bounce over to a farm. We're talking to them. Everybody's lifestyle, even in this small part of where we're at, is so different that there's no law that a politician can make that's going to paint you can't paint a broad stroke with a law
Yeah.
and have it affect everybody in the way that is best for everybody. You just can't do that.
It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be localized and really culture, community. You got a mouse right there crawling up your post.
Is there really?
Yep.
It's time to set some traps.
Yep. But, that's what it is. You can't, it's going to have to be some kind of a law or politicians that do that, and that takes forever.
It does. Yeah.
Even to get them to notice it,
It does. Yeah.
But, hey, it's been an awesome podcast. I think we've gone now almost 3 hours.
Is that really?
Is that clock right?
I don't know.
It says 11.
Oh boy.
11.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's
Wow.
time flies.
All right, buddy. Well,
Drive back to the big city of Utica to my hotel.
is that where you're staying?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Not too far from the venue there, and some restaurants around and stuff. But this has been great, man. This is an awesome place. I think you're going to build some really great memories.
Yeah,
in
we
here,
definitely
man.
are. Yep, for sure. Well, if you do want to try the Adirondacks, you get a weekend, give me a shout.
Yeah.
You got a place to stay anyway.
Oh, yeah, if you got one of those drunk bunks up there for me.
There's a drunk bunk for you.
Well, thanks, man. I
All
really
right, Pat.
appreciate it.
I'm glad you
It's been
came.
great. Yeah, me too.